I was the scapegoat, she was the golden child, now they're begging for my $750,000 inheritance hook. My entire life, my parents put my golden child sister on a pedestal and treated me like I was the dirt on their shoes. For them, I was the problem to be managed, the disappointment to be hidden. But now, thanks to a secret will from the only person who ever saw my true worth, I've inherited a $750,000 fortune. Suddenly, the family who discarded me is crawling back, desperate and demanding, insisting they deserve their fair share. They are about to learn that payback is very, very real, and after a lifetime of being their scapegoat, I'm the one who calls all the shots. If you're here for stories about long overdue justice and seeing karma deliver its masterpiece, you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, because you won't want to miss a single second of how this train wreck finally ends. To truly understand the breathtaking audacity my family has now, you have to picture my childhood. It wasn't a family, it was a kingdom, and my sister, Chloe, was the radiant, perfect princess. I, on the other hand, was the court jester, the stable boy, and the royal food taster, all rolled into one, and the official scapegoat for every single thing that ever went wrong. It wasn't just a minor preference, it was the entire foundation of our lives. Nothing was ever her fault, and everything I did was fundamentally wrong. My 16th birthday is a masterclass in their dynamic. After a brief, awkward dinner, my parents handed me a $20 bookstore gift card. Don't spend it all in one place, my dad said with a dry chuckle, as if my literary hobby was a minor, silly quirk. 2 months later, for Chloe's 16th birthday, the whole street was practically blocked off. A brand new convertible, a gleaming cherry red, was sitting in the driveway with a comically giant bow on top. My parents were just beaming, posing for photos and telling everyone who would listen how their popular, perfect, beautiful daughter deserved the world. The part they didn't say out loud, but that hung in the air, was that I simply didn't. It was a daily barrage of 1,000 little cuts. I vividly remember the day Chloe broke our grandma's antique crystal vase while carelessly playing catch inside the house. The moment she heard it shatter, her face crumpled into manufactured crocodile tears, which was enough to get her a comforting hug and an "it's okay, sweetie, accidents happen." Since I was just standing in the doorway, I was the one who got grounded for a month for not stopping her. Chloe just watched me take the blame, her eyes wide with a look of perfect, practiced innocence. She never said a word. My accomplishments were met with a shrug or suspicion. I worked my tail off in high school and earned a major academic scholarship for college, covering nearly all of my tuition. When I showed them the acceptance letter, my mom just glanced at it and said, "Oh, that's nice. It'll be good for you to be independent." No congratulations, no pride. But when Chloe won a third-place ribbon at some local, forgotten art show, they threw a fully catered party in her honor, inviting friends and family to celebrate her budding talent. Through all those years of being made to feel invisible, only one person seemed to see what was really going on, my great-uncle Nicholas. He was a quiet, brilliant man who'd built a successful logistics business from scratch and retired to a gorgeous cabin on a lake. He never stepped in to directly challenge my parents, but he saw me. When I'd visit, he'd talk to me like a peer, not a problem, asking about my books, my thoughts, my hopes, and he would actually listen to the answers. He told me once, looking out over the water, "Don't ever let them define your worth. A fire poker is only dirty when it's left in the ash. You're meant for the fire." I didn't totally get it then, but I clung to those words like a lifeline. A few months ago, Uncle Nicholas passed away peacefully in his sleep. My family's grief it felt like a poorly rehearsed performance. On the way to the lawyer's office to hear the will, they were already whispering about his estate and making plans. They were all salivating over the main prize, his cabin, a beautiful, rustic property on a pristine lake that they knew was worth around $750,000. It was a foregone conclusion in their minds. So, there we were, sitting in the stuffy, wood-paneled office. My dad was trying to arrange his face into a mask of solemn grief, my mom was dabbing at bone-dry eyes with a crumpled tissue, and Chloe was just texting away on her phone, probably bragging to her friends about the new summer home she was about to acquire. They were so disgustingly sure it was theirs. Chloe was his favorite, or so they had convinced themselves, based on nothing but their own delusions. The lawyer, a kind-looking older man named Mr. Gable, cleared his throat and began reading the will. He mentioned a few small donations to local charities, and then he got to the main event. "And as to my primary residence, all surrounding property, and the entirety of my remaining financial assets, held within the Alpine Heritage Trust." He paused, the silence in the room stretching thin, and then he looked directly at me. I leave everything, unconditionally, to my great-nephew. The silence that followed was so total it felt like a physical weight. Then, the room just exploded. What? My mother shrieked, her voice cracking. That's impossible. Read it again. It must be a mistake. My dad's face went from pale to beet red in a second. He was senile. There's no way this is legal. This won't hold up in court. Chloe was his favorite, he told us so. Chloe finally looked up from her phone, her perfectly made-up face twisting from disbelief into pure, unfiltered rage. He promised I could have my sweet 16 there. He wouldn't do this to me. And then the real tears started, big, angry, selfish ones. I just sat there, completely frozen, the words echoing in my head. I couldn't even process the number, let alone their reaction. Mr. Gable held up a hand, trying to restore order. I can assure you, Nicholas was of perfectly sound mind when he drafted this. His instructions are crystal clear and legally binding. My family just started shouting over him, throwing wild accusations at the lawyer, at Uncle Nicholas's memory, and, of course, at me. I numbly grabbed the thick stack of papers Mr. Gable handed me and walked out of the office, their furious, greedy yelling echoing down the hall behind me. The initial shock didn't last long. It quickly morphed into a full-blown, multifaceted campaign of entitlement. It started with my mother's phone call the very next day, her voice dripping with a fake, sugary sweetness I hadn't heard since I was 5. "Honey, we're just so worried about you," she cooed. "And a state that big is a huge responsibility for someone your age. Your father and I think it's for the best if we just handle the paperwork and manage it for you." When I politely but firmly said no, the guilt trips began. My father sent a barrage of texts, "We are your family. A gift like this is meant for the whole family to share. You don't want to be selfish, do you? After everything we've done for you?" Then came the melodramatic messages from Chloe, "You know how much I loved that cabin. You're basically stealing my best memories and my future. I can't believe you'd be this cruel." The nerve was just breathtaking. They had twisted reality so completely that in their minds, they were the victims here. It got worse when they ambushed me at my small, cramped apartment one evening. All 3 of them, standing at my door with grim expressions, like they were about to perform an intervention. "We need to be fair about this," my dad said, pushing right past me into my living room. "The only equitable solution is for Chloe to get the cabin. She'll use it more, and it has sentimental value for her. We can split the cash 4 ways. That gives you a nice little nest egg, and we keep the family asset in the family." "It's not a family asset," I said, my voice shaking slightly with rage. "It's mine." My mother actually scoffed, a sharp, ugly sound. "Don't be ridiculous. We raised you. We put a roof over your head and food on your table. By that right alone, a portion of anything you get is ours. Consider it repayment for our investment in you." An investment. That's all I ever was to them. After a lifetime of being treated like an emotional and financial burden, now that I had something they wanted, they were framing their basic parental duty as some kind of business deal that had finally paid out. And Chloe was standing right behind them, arms crossed, nodding with a smug sense of validation, as if it all made perfect sense. The burning injustice of it all was a fire in my chest, but through the anger, I kept hearing Uncle Nicholas's words in my head. "Don't let them define your worth." I knew I had to be smart about this, not just mad. The final showdown didn't happen in a stuffy lawyer's office. It happened on a bright, sunny afternoon, right on the land that was now mine. I got a frantic call from one of Uncle Nicholas's elderly neighbors. "Hey, you should probably know," she said, her voice full of concern, "there's a big moving truck pulling up to the cabin. Looks like your family is here with them, and they're going inside." My blood went cold. I drove the 2 hours up there in a state of quiet, focused rage. And sure enough, as I pulled down the long gravel driveway, there it was. A huge moving truck parked brazenly on the lawn. My parents were inside, pointing through the big front window, directing movers to take furniture out of the house. And Chloe? Chloe was on the porch, holding up different paint swatches against the siding, already planning her redecoration. I parked my car, took a deep, steadying breath, and walked over. The second they saw me, they all got these smug, triumphant looks on their faces. They genuinely thought they had won, that their sheer force of will could bend reality. "Oh, good, you're here," my mother said with absolutely zero shame, as if I were just arriving for a party. "We decided this is for the best. We're just putting Nicholas's old things in storage to make room. You're not equipped to handle a place like this, so we'll manage it as a rental and give you a small allowance from the income." This was it. The moment of truth. I stood there on my own porch and looked at them, really looked at them, not as their scared, scapegoated kid, but as the owner of the ground they stood on. "Actually," I said, my voice perfectly calm and level, "you can't do that." I pulled a thick folder from my bag. "You see, Uncle Nicholas was a very, very smart man. He anticipated that you'd try something exactly like this. He didn't just leave me the cabin in his will." I opened the folder and pulled out the top document. 5 years ago, he put the entire estate, the house, the land, the trust fund, everything, into a legally airtight, irrevocable trust, the Alpine Heritage Trust. I am the sole trustee and the sole beneficiary. The will was just a formality to inform me. This trust is ironclad. My ownership is absolute and has been since the day he signed it. I let that sink in, watching their smug smiles slowly melt into slack-jawed confusion. "And now," I said, my voice dropping colder, "you are all trespassing. And telling these men to remove my belongings is attempted theft. I already called the sheriff's department on my way up. They should be here any second." The change was instantaneous and spectacular. The arrogance didn't just fade, it evaporated, replaced by pure, animal panic. My mother's face went chalk white. My father started sputtering, looking from me to the movers and then frantically down the long driveway. Chloe dropped her paint swatches as if they had caught fire. The movers, bless them, immediately put down the dolly they were holding and took several large steps away from the house, wanting no part of this. Right on cue, a county sheriff's cruiser came rolling up the driveway, its presence official and undeniable. A tall, no-nonsense officer got out. I calmly walked over, introduced myself, and showed him my ID and the key trust documents. He read them carefully, nodded once, and then turned to my family, his expression hard. "This is private property," he said in a booming voice. "The owner wants you to leave the premises immediately. I suggest you do it now before he decides he wants to press charges for trespassing and attempted larceny." The humiliation was total and absolute. They didn't say a single word. They just scrambled to their car like startled rats, my mother giving me one last look of pure, venomous hatred. They tore out of the driveway, kicking up a cloud of dust and leaving the very confused movers behind. I calmly paid the movers for their time, apologized for my family's behavior, and sent them on their way. For the next few weeks, my phone was a war zone. First, it was a storm of angry, screaming voicemails filled with threats and insults. Then came the tearful, begging texts, professing their love and remorse. When that failed, they tried to send in the flying monkeys, other relatives calling me to talk some sense into me and encourage forgiveness. But I was ready. I sent every single one of them a short, polite summary of what had happened, complete with a crystal-clear picture of the moving truck parked at my cabin. The call stopped pretty quickly after that. I blocked their numbers. I blocked their emails and all their social media profiles. For the first time in my entire life, there's just silence. And it is the most beautiful, liberating sound I have ever heard. I quit my dead-end job that I was only working to barely scrape by. I've been spending my days at the cabin, slowly going through Uncle Nicholas's things, not to clear them out, but to learn more about the quiet, kind man who actually saw me. I found his old books, his journals, his photographs. It feels like I'm finally getting to know my only true family. I'm even starting some thoughtful renovations, bringing new life into the place he loved so much as a way to honor his memory. Some mornings, I just take my coffee out on the huge wraparound porch and watch the sun come up over the lake, listening to the birds. It's a kind of deep, soul-level peace I have never felt before. My family spent my whole life trying to make me feel worthless, like my only value was what I could do for them and for my sister's ego. In the end, their own bottomless greed exposed exactly who they were to the world. Uncle Nicholas's inheritance wasn't just the money or the house, it was the key that unlocked my cage. They wanted the cash, but I got something so much better. I got my life back. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. So, what would you have done? Would you have been more forgiving, or would you have done the exact same thing? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. See you on our next video.